Okay, everybody, back to budget hearings Thursday, May 15th. I want to apologize again that we couldn't get through everything yesterday. So I appreciate everybody coming back today, those that we couldn't finish, and got a full day here. So Lorian, take it away.
Okay, we'll be starting with the Department of Corrections on page 404 of your binders. And I'll hand it over to Steve Stonehouse.
Hey, good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Commissioners and Chairman. I'm Steve Stonehouse with the Department of Corrections. We're going to be talking about two funds today, corrections and crime prevention. So one is pretty small, so we're just going to do it all together. Maybe. So our workforce strength is fantastic compared to what we've seen in the past. And I think it's directly due to the compensation increases that we've received over the years. You'll notice that AISP is in the red, and that is because we are facing a 50% funding cut from the Department of Corrections. So we are not filling those positions in the anticipation that we will be laying people off. So we're not doing that. We may fill one because the work is starting to get heavy, but that's where we're at. Adult intensive supervision probation. It's community corrections. Community corrections. All the other facilities you'll notice are very well staffed, and we usually staff by population. JDF has a population in the 40s today, and for the last year, we're staffed for 77 or something like that. So we're actually right on target. We don't hire people unless we have the population for it. So everything else looks really, really good in corrections except for AISP. When we look at our services, the mandatory services are juvenile field services, probation, and case management, conditional release, JIAC, and we have an IIP program. JDF is required, and then community corrections. Everything else is non-mandatory in the department, and most of that is specialty services and also services to relieve population at detention or at the jail. So they're alternatives of less costly, more costly and more restrictive services, either because we're community-based. In adult services, we have two specialty courts, drug court and veterans treatment court. They both serve community corrections clients, but in special needs and special services. Pretrial services supervises between 400 and 700 folks who would otherwise be in the jail. So it's a less costly alternative for people who show up pretty high rate of return getting into court. And then our grants, we supervise are all discretionary. The county funds the crime prevention grant, and the rest are grants through KDOC into the department through Sedgwick County. Our strengths and weaknesses, obviously our full staffing helps a lot. It's easier to do our jobs when we have everybody to do it. We have a pretty stable leadership team, and we have an active strategic plan that is focused on work culture, focusing on our communication efforts, leadership training for supervisors, technology, and community partnerships. We have a continuous quality improvement team, which when you're trying to do evidence-based practices with folks, you need a lot of coaching and a lot of oversight, and our CQI team is able to do that. Although it's not required, it helps us do our job better. And then we have been working on the organizational coaching model in partnership with a federal grant through Justice System Partners. Unfortunately, they're a federal grant, so they've been on hold for about 6 months trying to figure out if they're still funded or not. Some weaknesses that we've identified was our applicant pool for community grants is not robust. It is lots of folks want to help, but the process of complying with the requirements of a grant, data keeping, record keeping, bookkeeping, audits, things like that are really prohibited for some providers. So we don't always have a great pool of applicants for our grants. Mental health, or I would say behavioral health interventions in the community in general are lacking, as everybody knows. So this really feeds our population in juvenile and adult. And then we always have turnover in direct care positions. This these jobs are not for everybody. And so it's a constant churn of hiring new folks. Opportunities is identification of grants, a possibility of an additional specialty court. We continually focus on growing our community partnerships, broaden our communication efforts so folks know who we are and what we do. Facility renovation and construction is exciting. We've been more involved in our legislature and lobbying in Topeka for what we need. And then our competitive compensation is always important because we want to ensure that we are an employer of choice. Our threats that we've identified, unfortunately, all revolve around mostly money. I've talked about the 50% cut to adult community corrections. KDOC has, the legislature cut 1.5% for all departments during this last session. And KDOC had initially communicated that this exempted the community and the facilities, but 2 weeks ago, we learned that KDOC feels now that it may include us. So we've been told that we had to cut 1.5% from juvenile corrections, which is about $300,000. We've done that, we've identified that, but we've gotten no communication on the adult side, which in theory could be 1.5 or the 50%. We don't have any communication on what that looks like. Federal supports for initiatives has been a threat in that it's just not stable, and we don't know exactly what's going to be supported in the future. Evidence-based practices funding is also threatened. The legislature has cut $10 million out of the fund. It's earmarked 2 other programs. So beginning in fiscal year 27, it looks like there will only be 2.9 million for the state. Today, Sedgwick County gets 3.9 million just through the Department of Corrections. So that will significantly reduce or go away soon. And then succession planning. Leadership in the Department of Correction, present company included, is getting old, and we want to retire at some point. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, we lost 75% of our staff. So we don't naturally have the new people coming up because everybody went away. So that is going to be a challenge for when those of us decide to pull the trigger and go away to the great retirement land. Just not be here. So this is what our budget request looks like. Our general fund this year is essentially the same, 15 million. Corrections grants, we're at 14 million, and JAG grants at 87,000. We haven't made our request for this year yet. So our total is 30,511,887, essentially the same as it has been. The biggest change is a reduction in the pass-through or the transfer out. That's what it's called. The county gives support in a transfer out fund, and we significantly reduced our ask for that. We've gotten more comfortable with 2 of our big contracts with Vital Corps for prisoner health and our food contract. We never had that before, so we're pretty comfortable that we know the ins and outs of those grants. So our request has significantly dropped. And we're not in expansion mode. We're not doing anything new because we don't know where we're going to be. So we're just treading water until we can find our bottom and then go from there. Because we may be coming with an ask, but we don't know what it is because we don't know how much our cuts are going to be. And this is what it looks like. Personnel contractuals, pretty significant. The contractuals have went up just because of natural increases in our contracts over time. But our commodities do get cut when we don't have to like buy food for food service because we're doing it with a contract. So it's a little bit a push. And then you'll see the interfund transfers is the biggest reduction there.
No way.
Yeah.
For the record, I put a happy face on my pages once in a while. She always kills it every time. Thank you for that.
So it's a overall reduction in our corrections general budget. And our crime prevention general fund, which provides grants to the community, is the same as 25. We requested the same for 26. There's no personnel. The personnel comes from, it takes a significant amount of personnel for legal, purchasing, and us to put the grants out and support them, but we don't charge it to the county. It's just part of our regular work in our general request. Our reductions that we're looking at for this request is the reduction in one application manager. It's a shared position between corrections. Well, it's not, it's a IT position funded by corrections for the implementation of our new records management system. And we're wrapping up the implementation phase of that. So we are willing to look at a reduction in that position. And like I told our new CIO, we discussed that with the former CIO, but he's on board now, so he gets to learn about it. And we would like to have one revenue package to increase the client program fee from $15 a day to $20 a day. When we did our last resolution, we have two programs at adult residential and work release. Work release already has a flexible resolution and allowing us to go up to $20 a day. This other program does not. So we would like a new resolution to increase by $5 a day. And we're estimating $89,000 in revenue on that. So that's our reduction and our decision packages. That's all I have.
Okay, Steve. Take some questions and comments before we get into the question piece of it. Where are we at on that KDOT formula adjustment for community programs, community corrections? Do you have any latest updates or?
I don't. We periodically get communications that they're still considering that. We are still sending data to Johnson County, who is performing the data analysis for this program. So they are still requesting and we still send them data as requested.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, I'll keep going. And the weakness piece on the SWOT analysis, you talk about the applicant pool for community grants is really hard to fill. Is that because I hear from some of these organizations, just the barrier and the burden of evidence-based versus evidence-informed. Is this a statute thing? Is this a KDOC thing? I mean, how do we open the capacity for more community organizations to apply for these?
It's a mix between statute and then requirements of, well, because it's an evidence-based fund. So they say that it has to at least be evidence-informed. And the amount of work for that is significant.
It's significant.
I mean, we find that in our own, we have our CQI, we have that just to keep ourselves in line with that. So
yeah.
it also the requirement of the grants that come through the county. I mean, the county has requirements of an insurance level, regular audits, things like that. Some of those are barriers for smaller programs that just aren't used to that.
Yeah. Okay. Tom?
I'm just going to add in, when we received CARES money and we became grantors, we ran into a lot of flack from people who, they just wanted the money. And there's all kinds of strings attached, especially to federal money. And I know it appears like it's red tape, but you have to appease the grantor who's giving us the money.
Sure.
And that's what we're running into here. There's things that we have to ask for to meet obligation, and people are resistant to that.
Sure. Well, my hope is that obviously as we see these challenges, and there might be some funding challenges coming from the state, that we're able to tap into the community programs and community organizations. You know, you and I talked numerous times about the potential of doing that on the juvenile campus and keeping that in mind as we look at any sort of pivots that we're making there. So it's helpful. Steve, you're doing the best you can, man.
We've started, I mean, One Heart is a new KDOC funded program here in Sedgwick County, and they are co-located now at the juvenile residential center. Most likely those grants will not continue. It's going to be gone. So something about politicians and a pot of money. I don't know quite about that, but That's what's happened, is that fund is going to be gone.
I was just going to add in, Chairman, to your question. So we have this adult programs algorithm that's hanging around out there. We don't know. I don't know. We'll check with Jason if there's an update on that. We're kind of trusting him to massage that for us. But the fact that we haven't got a distinctive answer back is a little bit problematic.
Troubling. Yeah. troubling.
so
How do we plan? How do we forecast?
That's issue one. And then the juvenile cuts, what Steve has covered is reality. That they're going in and we're going to, I mean, at the end of the day, not be able to offer the kind of programming and staffing that we have. And that's just the reality of the cuts of the budget. So we'll have to react.
Yeah, well, as creative as we can get to pull in community organizations, I think we're gonna have to. So. Okay. All right, Steve, think we're good. Thanks. Appreciate it. Lauren?
Okay, next we have Regional Forensic Science Center on page 395 of your binders.
Well, good morning. Welcome.
Not as tall. Good morning. I'm Katie Asbury, Senior Administrative Officer with the Regional Forensic Science Center. And this is our org chart for 2025. We are fully staffed. Compared to last year, we were fully staffed, but we had 2 scientists that were still completing training. So this year we are fully trained and fully staffed. Our mandatory services include pathology, which is our autopsy and transcription, our medical investigations, management of unclaimed remains, administrative support services, quality control and evidence management, toxicology, and DNA testing and human identification of remains. Excuse me. Our other column we refer to more as discretionary versus non-mandatory because most of these services are still mandated by state statute, but it is not necessary that the testing is provided through the Regional Forensic Science Center. So these services are often critical to the district attorney's office for their prosecution efforts. Those include out-of-county autopsy services, out-of-county toxicology for postmortem and antemortem services, drug identification, firearms examination, DNA testing with criminal casework, and fire debris testing. Our strengths include that we are fully trained, and we want to make sure we acknowledge that that's a lot of benefits for the competitive pay and flexible work environment compared to a few years ago where we were fully training our staff members, especially our scientists, and then we were losing them to other accredited organizations, especially KBI. So that has not been happening. So that is a good thing. We have accreditation stability. We have recently, a couple years ago, developed an equipment replacement fund that is growing. We have significant institutional knowledge through long-term and staff and employees. And we have really developed strong health department, public relations or public safety and emergency management partnerships. Some opportunities include we're getting lots more requests for internships and student affiliate agreements. We've had a lot more student requests. Unfortunately, due to the casework and the environment that we're in, we can't accommodate a lot of those, but we have instituted about this last year or so monthly tour opportunities for those who are over the age of 18, where they can come in, hear from scientists and our staff members, get a quick tour and kind of expand knowledge and hopefully get people interested in the field. And some other opportunity would be our KDOT funding that is going to provide for some advanced instrumentation and expansion of tox services. That's our QTOF. Some weaknesses include shortage of space for work and storage, and we do have a CIP opportunity in the works there. We do have a growing number of unclaimed bodies for our indigents. We have critical operations that are often managed by only one staff member, and our toxicology send-out funding is expiring. Some threats include federal funding reductions for equipment and supplies, federal funding reduction of staff, instrument maintenance costs, which we did include during the budget process that we're estimating probably an additional $80,000 a year for our annual instrument maintenance and service contracts. Tariffs that are already being seen for our orders. We're getting tariffs added to our orders for mostly our drug costs right now. And so that's increasing our costs And we are having some potential toxicology or autopsy backlogs. This is our budget request. It is pretty similar to last year, just a little bit smaller, just under 6 million. Most of ours is general fund with a little bit of the grant funding in there. Most of our budget goes towards personnel costs. And then contractuals and commodities are almost a 50-50 split. Most of those contractuals are our instrument and service maintenance costs. And we did not have any packages or reductions or revenue. We do have a potential increase in revenue for out-of-county autopsy services. We're looking to partner with Riley County to start taking their cases potentially later this year or early next year. And that is all we have. Are there any questions for me or Dr. Stedman, who is here?
Dr. Seven. Okay, questions. One quick point. We do feel really, really good about the cremains bill. I know there was some procedural issues as to why we couldn't get that across the finish line this year, but we've been told to expect that we'll get it early this next year. So we're going to hold them to it.
That's good.
Yeah, it is.
That'll help us a lot.
Other questions? I know I'm jumping ahead, but the CIP, since they're here, what is going to be the CIP for the Forensic Science Center?
So you'll see that it'll be I believe, $19 million request. Rusty has indicated that that's among the highest priorities. So you'll see that in the early years of the CIP that we're.
Is this expansion? Is it a new site? What are we doing here?
I'll let Dr. Stedman speak to all the details.
Space is an issue.
Kelly Stedman, what the current plan is to use the existing central building to continue with autopsy services and toxicology. Since they do the postmortem tox, it makes sense for them to be closely positioned, and then to move the other forensic science services to a separate building across the street. So we'll still be a department, but we will have a building, and that will include all of other forensic science laboratories. That will free up space in DNA and drug ID and allow tox to have that laboratory space, and pathology to expand their autopsy suite.
And so that'll be in the current health department parking lot is where that new build would be. So that's when she says across the street, that's what she's referencing.
A campus. Got it. Okay. Any other questions? Easy does it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Lauren?
Okay, we are to our last Public Safety Department, Metropolitan Area Building and Construction Department. We'll be on page 517 of your binder. Yes.
Good morning, Commissioners. Chris Labram, MABCD. So our workforce strength is healthy overall, up a little bit from last year. This reflects several current hiring actions that are taking place as we speak. A little bit of turnover in our city section and neighborhood inspection. We hope to get those inspectors hired again. Our red square there, that's land use. It's only a 4-person shop. The significance there is that vacancy is Kelly Dixon. So floodplain management, fairly important. And we'll be looking to hopefully hire a qualified technician. We may sadly have to poach one from another jurisdiction, but we are starting that process. We just are making the selection to replace Tim Wagner's position as the old land use supervisor. So we wanted to get that in place, let them be a part of the floodplain manager selection. None of our, as with many others, none of our services are mandated by state or federal law. There are some of those that we would have to find a way to still meet state's minimums. With those, it would probably pass cost on to consumers and potentially some tax programs. But of course, we are also revenue funded in all that we do. For our SWAT, very happy to be near full strength and to have had very moderate turnover. One of our strengths also comes with some management, but the expanding coverage areas helps to keep us stable and also definitely helps to keep the local industry stable and consistent with them. So have seen continued robust activity and revenue in spite of what a lot of the news and that we've seen. It has a little bit of ebb and flow, but overall still been very robust and stable in our area. Our code adoption, et cetera, we feel has been very solid. Also, a lot of community support with that. So industry relationship support there, very solid. And then, of course, we're looking to get a new software suite that we think will help us with a lot of processes in this year. Similar to what Steve was talking about, all of my supervisors are about the same age and either reaching or soon to reach the area where they're eligible for full retirement and can go at any time. So we could potentially lose a lot of supervisors at one time, and we don't have a full suite of individuals ready to fill those roles. Of course, the software we talked about, we are seeing, and then with the case management, we're obviously continuing to see an increase with vacant properties, blighted properties, and some of those problems. The other piece of that is I've met more with the district attorney in the last 18 to 24 months about consumer protection issues than I probably did in the 5 years before that combined. So we have seen quite an increase in that. I think some of that's post-COVID. Businesses that were maybe not as financially stable as they thought they were have sometimes gotten themselves in a little bit of trouble. And then another one is standardization with our small cities. You'll see down in opportunities that we think we can do a lot to make that work with our new software suite, have a module within that each one of them will be able to manage through. So I'll be getting with Ms. Cole to try to get with SCAC and get some of that out on the street here soon. Succession planning, obviously a piece of that to try to get ready for those retirements. And then our revenue, if our revenue stays stable, our funding stays where it's at, that still gives us the ability, as we have recently, to support a lot of the economic growth programs, whether that be fee waivers. Generally, that's what we do, but fee waivers or other type of support as you all would see fit to provide those opportunities. Obviously, a threat would be if we see a major change to industry activity. As stated previously, the increase in kind of some of the illicit activity that we're seeing, increasing in blighting conditions, vacant commercial, cybersecurity is always a big one for us, and we thank IT for helping us with that. So this reflects actually our overall budget. It reflects about the normal inflation rate. The reason you see the dip is because we had the increase for our software purchase in this year. So this is actually a bump in 25 more so than a decrease in 26. Note also on this that all that revenue budget, so all of that is revenue. There's no general fund, no tax dollars associated with that number. That also supports 4 positions in the planning department for their zoning section. That supports a couple firefighters who do inspection, and it supports the public works, sewer and water maintenance fee collection. So all of those are with us under a one-stop shop. We do collect revenue towards those. The fire does pay for itself. Zoning pays for about 40% of those, but we still we support those programs as they are related to building industry, building activity. So the breakdown here, again, kind of the standard jump for us. You do see that we had interfund transfers reduced and moved those up to our commodities. That's kind of typical for us to have be a little bit high in contractuals one year while we're purchasing systems, et cetera. Then the next year we'll move that to commodities and get new equipment and different things like that. So that bounce back and forth for us is actually fairly typical. There's not much here. As far as a difference, we are seeing it. It's just a matter of which cost centers they're reflected in. We did gain a few more county positions as we've had a few city employees retire that were on county managed positions. We do have one decision package, given the numerous times I've mentioned our case management issues there. When we get into situations kind of threefold, one, we're into building code and we're assisting City of Wichita neighborhood inspectors. When we get into issues of commercial buildings where we're managing a case, we've got void permits, expiring permits, contractors not calling in inspections, contractors not getting permits, all of those things that happen. That's an additional duty right now for our combination inspectors, and that workload is getting somewhat crushing. A few years ago, we brought part-time inspectors on. We got kind of a strong start with that, but then it faded fast. We've had a few people jump through those positions, never really gained the momentum that we were looking for. So our request is to add an FTE position to handle that while reducing or eliminating the 2 part-time inspector positions that we have now. Obviously, a little more expensive to have an FTE because of benefits. The salary does offset, but so that's our one ask as far as a decision package, and then our alternative reduction with that. And I guess lastly, as we get to questions, the handout, the memo that I handed out, that is a breakdown of our current small city support. As Mr. Stoltz mentioned earlier, we would bring to this. So happy to answer any questions that you may have on that as well, or if that's just, if you'd like to keep that for reference and.
It's helpful. Yeah, appreciate it. Clarity.
Whenever.
Okay, any questions? Commissioner Howe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hey, appreciate the briefing. I asked a question to Scott. I should have asked you instead, and so I'm going to try to do this again. But there's been an agreement. We've had numerous agreements, or attempted agreements with Wichita since the merger of MABCD with the City of Wichita. And I understand that our most recent effort to get an agreement has not been adopted by Wichita. We're at an impasse right now. Can you please explain that?
So, and that, it's a good question, Commissioner. That is specifically the contract for the reimbursement of City of Wichita costs. So that would be the employees city employees that we have that are revenue funded, as well as any other equipment, et cetera, that is originally paid by the City of Wichita. So the department operates off of a current memorandum of agreement. We have discussed moving that to an interlocal service agreement, more of an intergovernmental service agreement. So Justin has kind of led the charge on that, and it does look like we're probably going to go that direction. Specific to our payment quarterly back to the City of Wichita for the costs that they front. That contract originally expired in 2017. We renewed it for a couple years. It expired again in 2019. We have some areas there specifically. We have 11 vehicles that are in our county managed fleet, but are still city-owned vehicles. And just kind of based on the differences in fleet management, we have not been able to get that across the finish line to transfer those vehicles. We have a few other just process issues that we think would be a lot better in the new contract. And yes, at different times in different ways, that discussion is kind of stalled out. But I think we're at a point now where that's moving forward, and we should have a new agreement soon.
Okay, so we've been living under an MOU versus a interlocal agreement.
Yes, sir.
And the interlocal agreement, if it is adopted, at some point it has to be, I guess, reviewed and approved by the AG. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
So that's what needs to happen. And that we've not, have we ever had the interlocal agreement with Wichita on this, or is this, we only had MOU?
Correct, sir.
And we've been doing this now since when?
Right.
13 years.
2013.
By the way, just to make sure I understand, so we still have people that, under MABCD, if I understand the relationship, are there? So let me say it this way: the MOU and the interlocal agreement. Is there anything substantially different in them, other in terms of how we financially relate to each other?
I don't know if I would say different. It will be more detailed. The MOU is fairly generic. It was designed to establish the relationship and get the merger started. So I don't think we would see a lot of differences, but we would be more solidified. We would see some more detail in that.
I think I agree in terms of probably operations. There's not a lot different, but it would have substantial impact on how we do our finances and what level of accounting is necessary. It would require more planning in advance between the two managers than what we currently have today, where we just get a bill at the end of a quarter and kind of have to pay it regardless. So it does formalize it, but it also, I think, gives greater protection on the county side. And I don't know if Tom has anything he wants to say. Okay.
So the way I understand it, so before this merger, we probably had, I guess, two offices and we had county employees and city employees and putting this together. Now they are in one space. You said there's 11 vehicles. Are there city vehicles and county vehicles or just city vehicles?
So and this would be in the building section, which is on the far left. We have a total of 23, 24 vehicles in that section. Actually, probably have more, total of 30, 32. And then in that section, so 11 of those are still city owned. I still have 5 city employees in that section, but that's pretty simple math to see that we have county employees driving city vehicles. So county policy allows any MABCD employee to drive a county owned vehicle. We're covered their liability and risk management wise. City policy does not allow for a county employee to drive a city vehicle, but I have no choice. So
For these 5 employees, as attrition happens, is the intent to replace them with
And
county employees?
each of those retirements or I assume retirements at this point, those will become county positions. Yes, sir.
So, go ahead.
I was just going to say, there are some positions though that MABCD funds that will never, ever become county. And those are the inspectors, not necessarily, I don't.
Yeah,
think
so
that
the
falls on
middle
building
column,
That middle, yeah.
yeah, that middle
just
column, those
understand that.
25 FTEs will always be city employees.
So I'll just throw this out there. Again, I do think that this is better for the contractors and the builders and those that need to have these services. I think this is absolutely more convenient to have all this co-located. I'll just make an observation that it's complex. We had, had the city just said to the county, we essentially, hand it over to the county, you take over, provide the services back. That would be a lot simpler, but that's not where we're at. It's complicated because we have 2 managers. We have a director that's working for both sides. We have employees that are city and county trying to work alongside each other. And that doesn't seem to be totally switch one way or the other. We have vehicles that are, this side versus that side. It's just complex. And I just say, talk about mergers and simplifying government and savings for the taxpayers and making things better for people we serve. This is a convoluted solution. It's not as good as it could have been. And again, when you truly consolidate, there are really great opportunities for efficiencies. I would argue that 911 and EMS are good examples of what consolidation actually does look like. This is one of those things where they want to say, we're going to merge some of what we do together. We're going to partner up, but it's not necessarily less complex or less expensive. It's just kind of convoluted. And there's things like this that kind of frustrate me that here we are 13 years in the process and we still have paperwork that's not been complete. The interlocal agreement needed to happen a long time ago. And the fact that we're still sitting here on this, I don't know if negotiations are actually happening or we're just kind of sitting there looking at each other. I don't know what the holdup is, but it needs to be resolved. And this complexity of legal paperwork not being signed should give us a bit of a pause and say, when you consolidate stuff, it's not always going to be super simple. That's the kind of stuff that happens. True consolidation is where one side says, rather than you doing it and us doing it, we're going to hand our thing over to you. You do it for both of us. That's what could have happened. Instead, what we have is we have 2 entities trying to essentially control what they think is important to their entity and try to work together, but we're not really consolidated. We're simply partnered up, co-located, but it's complex and convoluted. And in my opinion, this low interlocal agreement is kind of disappointing that we haven't got that solved before now. But, am I wrong?
No, understand that, Commissioner. What I will say is that, if you look at the org chart, if you go to the bottom blocks, It is very efficient and and does save money there. So the combined city and county budgets at the time that I entered this position, and that was when the revenue was being combined, those combined budgets were about $14 million. And as you see now, our combined budget is about $10 million. So we have saved money. We have become efficient with that. You do have to add into that about another $1 million that's city general funded there, but you are about $3 to $3.5 million more efficient. And I think you could even say more given inflation with that. Everything you described about complexity in those upper blocks, and especially that top one that I live in, I will not disagree with you at all, sir.
Let me go a little bit further. You have human resource policies, we have training, we have
Two budget
obviously
hearings.
salary differences, we have computer responsibilities and, cybersecurity responsibilities. We have building maintenance and I was just say, even one of the things I think is actually confusing probably for everyone, maybe not for Lindsay, but the budget side of this. So there's expenditures and revenues on both the city budget and the county budget. And really, to understand the whole thing, you have to look at both city budget and county budget to really understand what's really going on there. And then we have parking agreements because we have to park, because they own the land and we want to park on that. It's just, man, this is complicated. I don't know. This is a great, we talk about, yes, we can do this. And this is an example. We can work together and make things better, we think. But this really isn't the poster child of what it should look like. There's a lot of things that are about this that have not turned out, I think, the way it was envisioned from the very beginning. So I'll just throw that out there. I'm a supporter of consolidation. This isn't exactly what I have in mind, though.
It sounds like unified government's coming from the commissioner from District 5. Go ahead, Pete.
Hey, thanks, Chris. And thank you for this summary page. So I just want, is there under your weaknesses and opportunities, this small city support? Oh, is that a big can we help? I mean, you referenced SCAC. That's good. I mean, is there something that is?
And so you all authorized us to buy a new system. And what we plan to do with that is make it, is that will facilitate each small city having their own module, we believe, within our system, which will make, help us standardize that support versus having kind of a different style of agreement with many that you see in there. Everyone ends up being just a little bit unique. But if we have that, we'll be able to kind of standardize our support to them a bit more. It will still be customized to the type of support they require. But that will allow them to much more easily enter directly into our system. It will allow, I believe we will be able to get it to where contractors, no matter which jurisdiction is the entry, will be able to still apply for permits online. And then it would kick those into the right category. So for example, right now, if you want a building permit in Cheney, you go to the Cheney city clerk, get that permit. They then send that permit to us and it's entered into Hanson so that all the inspections, et cetera, are scheduled with us. They retain responsibility for that permit. We duplicate it in order to provide full support on that. So this would allow all of that to just directly occur in the system.
Are you having any pushback from the cities?
No, sir.
Okay.
Not at all. So
this is
I think they will welcome this. And the reason I mentioned SCAC is I want to make sure that we start to let them know where we're at, make sure that they see what we're looking at and are able to give input when the time is correct and we start to set those up. Let them know that some relief to a little bit of the duplication and bureaucracy that we have not been able to eliminate to this point is on the horizon.
Okay, thanks. And related to I respect Commissioner Howell's feelings about some of the discomfort that he may have, but being around at the city at the time and seeing the evolution of this quasi merge, maybe not a perfect merge, but it's I think even your example of the 14 million to 10 million is just one, but it seems like the building and the development association is definitely appreciative of this combined effort, especially since the city is, as you referenced, 80% of the permitting. They need to be at the table, and us being the overseer, right? It's worked, maybe not perfect, but I fully compliment and endorse the continuation and improvement where you can. So, thank you.
Okay. Couple questions and then comments. The decision package for one FTE revenue neutral, correct? This is not, you're calculating everything and you're not asking for anything more than what your revenues will produce, right?
Correct.
I've hit you up on a couple of occasions. I think where we're at in some housing issues in our community in regards to the need to put our foot down and try to get some development. This is more of a comment, but I'd like to schedule some time with you in planning to sit down and talk about some of these opportunities to build for builders to get into some of the lower end affordable housing discussions. They're having a hard time building single family homes right now. And there are some models across the country that I really want to pick your brain about to see if there's some infill opportunities here. So that's just a heads up. You've already been on a couple of emails, but I want to dig into that and make sure that we can sit down and really kind of vet this out and see if there's a change in direction. And then last comment, and it's to Commissioner Howells and Meister's, is I appreciate that we're going to continue to try to work the interlocal agreements to make sure that we get something in writing and something down. And I would just encourage us that when we see weaknesses and continued pivots, that we stay encouraged to make sure that we push through. If there's weaknesses in the current model, let's fix it. Let's find out ways to do things better. I think a lot's been learned over 13 years. But I would tell you from the end user, and I've been on the end user in the private business world, this is a really good process for the end user many times. So I appreciate the work. And my last comment, because I know we have some staff in the room, you guys have to deal with a lot of flack sometimes. So I just want to, it's just a thank you and appreciation, particularly on the nuisance side, in my district in particular, a lot that goes through the city. But I'm on a lot of those emails, and anytime I've called, anytime I've emailed, it's almost instantaneous that you have somebody get back with me. So you're doing a lot of work in the community. I just want to thank you publicly that your job's hard and you guys are very responsive. I think you do a wonderful, wonderful work.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Anything else?
Well,
We're good. Oh, go ahead, Pete.
yeah, just to assure that based on the history, do you have anything to add, Tom? You were kind of part of the effort to get this thing all kicked off from the start. Of course, you're in a different role now, but
Well,
at that time you were.
Just, yeah, I have a lot to add, but sometimes in government, you do what's best for the end user. And if it's work or complicated, you figure it out so that the end user doesn't feel it on the backside. We'll figure this out inside. Chris does a great job of managing this. It is great in fact, if you want to test what, and we're defending the builders on this, they pay, they pay for everything. This is all fee driven. There's no property tax in this. So if you want to see how important it is to builders, talk about the idea of splitting this back up again, because it's been talked about from the city side, and they get very upset when you do that. So they like where we're at with this. They're very pleased with how Chris is operating this. They're very pleased with this staff. They're very pleased with the process. Not only Wichita, but several, and Chris gave you the one pager here.
Better.
Right.
Several of our ancillary cities and even counties, we're in 2 counties now, see this regional model and the centralized model as superior. So
Okay.
we'll figure out the legal end of this. We will get that done. I agree. It has been delinquent in being done. It is not from the lack of trying on the county side, I assure you.
I know.
And we will push this through and get it done. So
Very good. Okay. Great.
Thanks for that.
Appreciate you, Chris. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Chris.
Is that public safety wrapped up, Lauren?
That's it.
That's it.
That's it. We have a break till 1 o'clock.
50% of what we do here is public safety, and that was it. It's just a day and a half.
Not too bad.
It was an expensive day and a half. Yes. Okay. What's next?
1 o'clock, we'll be back for CIP. That is our last one.
Okay. Wonderful.
Bring your caffeine, sugar, whatever. 1 o'clock.
You need 2 pots of coffee in there. And
I'm not looking forward to it any more than you are.
1 o'clock, do we anticipate, there is a kind of an important event at 3 o'clock? Do we anticipate,
It will entirely depend upon you all.
Oh, boy.
I will do my part.
we got it?
Lynn will do his part.
You've got a thought for for a 2-hour thing?
Yeah, do you want